This video is proudly sponsored by VR Wave because they offer a tailor-made solution to your lens inserts, and they cover a wide selection of VR headsets such as the Quest series, Pimax, PSVR 2, HTC, Pico, and soon the Pimax Super as well. Now, even if you don't wear glasses, it's important to protect your lenses, and of course if you do wear glasses, then it makes it all day comfortable. You can have blue light filter, and they also account for astigmatism, nearsighted and farsightedness. So check out my 5% discount in the notes below. So let's do this, comparing the Pimax Crystal Lite and the OG Crystal to the Crystal Super, because you might not need to upgrade. It depends on your situation and what you want from a VR headset. So I think this particular video hopefully should be of great value to you and might even save you some money. So first of all, sorry if I sound a bit weird. I did have an operation to my face recently. I'm saying this just in case you're wondering why I can't pronounce some of my words. I'm going to try my best, but if I sound a bit weird, that's why. So let's just start with the obvious, the visuals. Both headsets are really at the top of their game, and there's no doubt about it that the Crystal, I'm talking about the Pimax Crystal Lite and the OG Crystal, has one of the best panels out there still. Incredible sharp visuals. I remember when I first tested it against the Aero, and admittedly I was a little bit biased towards the Aero in the sense that I just wanted it to win because I love that headset. But when I looked through it, well, I just could not believe my eyes, and that video is on the channel, and it's quite interesting looking back at that and my reactions. And today, when I've been testing the Pimax Crystal Lite and OG Crystal at full native resolution, it still really impresses me and makes a strong case for itself that actually you don't really need much more clarity than this. However, when you see and experience 50 ppd, well, it does blow you away all over again, and it is quite a difference. But here's the thing, it's not really about sharpness anymore. Now that we're getting very close to retina levels of resolution, it's about how it feels on the eyes and how there is more pixel fill, less noise and less screen door effect. Which I'm not suggesting you can really see screen door effect with a Crystal. I mean, I can, but only ever so slightly. But with the Crystal Super, it's just non-existent anymore. But there's more to this story than just raw clarity and crazy high resolution panels, because the Crystal Super has better aspheric lenses. They are bigger, they've got a better field of view, and they've got a much larger sweet spot, a really good sweet spot. The thing is though, the Crystal Super does not have everything its own way, because there is Mura in the display. The Crystal Super that I'm using to record this video, well, it's not an issue for me at all, and in fact my Quest 3 has more Mura than this, and if you're not sure what I'm talking about, it's basically the inconsistencies of the pixel brightness during the manufacturing process, and it presents itself as a sort of fogging or dirty window effect. Now my Crystal Lite also has Mura, and in fact that headset has a few lines in it as well, and it is something that's inherent with LCD displays in general, so it all depends on how much that bothers you. So it's a tricky one to compare because all the panels are going to be a bit different. One thing that the Super does suffer with though, which is worse than the Pimax Crystal Lite, is chromatic aberration. At the moment it's pretty bad in places, especially for some reason in DCS world and in some areas where you're looking at menus and text. Don't get me wrong though, the Pimax Crystal Lite also has chromatic aberration as well, but if I had to pick which one was worse, it definitely is the Super at the moment. I say at the moment because again, this could change in software. Fingers crossed. Also, the panel is brighter than that of the Crystal Lite. So can you imagine all those things coming together? The higher clarity, brightness, field of view and better lenses. Well, it's obvious that the Super is going to win against the Crystal Lite. I mean, it better do, because it's more money and that's its party piece, is that crazy high-end clarity. And talking of which, it is absolutely the king of clarity now. Without a question, without a shadow of a doubt. That brings me nicely onto the performance. The Super is a beast to run. And if you downsample it to say medium settings, then you're looking quite close to a crystal light. However, you do benefit from that higher pixel fill, like I've just mentioned, and the better lenses. And I guess you've future-proofed yourself if you ever wanted to upgrade your GPU. Now, to give you some more information on this, the max rendering target for the Pimax Crystal Lite, that is with OpenXR 100% using MSFS, is 4,312 by 5,102. That's already an insane resolution, even for a 4090 to manage, okay? But to compare that to the Crystal Super, are you sat down? It is 6,240 by 6,280. Oh my god. My GPU has just committed suicide. And that's where you really ideally need to lean on DLSS 4, fixed favorited rendering, but thankfully with the Super you have eye tracking, so you'll have quad views, which will get better over time, I'm sure of it. And thankfully Transformer model DLSS 4 can look sharper than TAA mode. You can actually run this with a 4070 Ti Super. I've tried it. And with DLSS 4 set to 70% of the resolution, I mean ideally medium settings, it still looks fantastic. But in my opinion, that's where the lines get a bit blurred, in the sense that the Crystal Lite does give you a better native resolution and sharpness. But I would personally still pick the Crystal Super because of the better fill factor and of course the brighter panel and better field of view. Talking of field of view, the field of view figures for me for the Pimax Crystal Lite and OG Crystal is 102 both sides, that is horizontal and vertical. In comparison, the Super, I'm getting 126 horizontal and 102 vertical. However, there's more to this story too, because the Crystal Lite and OG Crystal, the binocular overlap is okay. In fact, it's decent really, but it's not as good as the Crystal Super at 103 degrees binocular overlap. There is going to be a setting though that puts the Crystal Super to a similar overlap to the Crystal Lite and OG Crystal, and at that point the field of view figures are going to be even bigger. So that is very, very cool. And I must admit, for those who love field of view, the Crystal Super absolutely blows apart the Crystal Lite and OG Crystal. And especially for doing this kind of thing, fast-paced, flying, low to the ground, that sensor speed, well, it cannot be ignored. In essence, basically, with the Super, you get the sharpest panel in the business, the best field of view, brightness, you have everything. There is hardly any compromises, apart from the comfort. Now, to be fair, there isn't a massive difference in this, especially with the OG Crystal, which is quite heavy with the XR2 chipset, which you're never going to use as a flight simmer. I was quite surprised, though, that it's okay for me. The trouble is, I am used to big headsets. Yes, that's right, folks. Even though I have been using the Mega NEX and Big Screen Beyond, this channel, well, it's built upon using very large headsets for many years. So I still am used to these large headsets. And I was very surprised that it is pretty comfortable. Although I think some people will definitely struggle, and I would recommend to get the top strap included with your order because it will definitely make a difference, helping to relieve some of that frontal weight. But there's no getting away from the fact that this is still a very large headset. I do love, however, that Pimax have shaved off some of the width of the headset, which makes it a little less, I mean, it's not a massive difference, but you can tell there's a little less wobble when moving very fast. Less inertia, basically, even compared to the Crystal Lite, because it looks like a hammerhead shark more so than the Super, which I really am quite surprised. In the flesh, it looks quite small in comparison, which for some reason never really translates in a video. It's important to mention, of course, that the Crystal OG, Lite and Super share the same software package, that is the Pimax Play. I feel it's very good most of the time. I think the only thing that I will mention is smart smoothing doesn't really work very well on either of these headsets, which is very frustrating because in the past with the 8KX, they did a great job with smart smoothing. So come on Pimax, let's get this up and running now. Also, of course, they both come with controllers. They both have inside-out tracking. That's a massive deal, and I appreciate that for a lot of people out there. Just having base stations and outside-in tracking is just a complete deal breaker. So if that's really important to you, then this does have its own tracking, and it does perform pretty well, especially for flight simulation. Not sure about Beat Saber and roller skates, but for sat down in a motion rig, no problems at all. A couple of other things to mention is the refresh rate. The Crystal Super has 120Hz, 90Hz and 72Hz. At the time of this recording, the Super only has a 90Hz and 72Hz. Also, as well, there is one major difference which I've got to talk about here, and that is the optical engine of the Super can be completely changed out. So you can have a QLED 50 ppd panel, a 57 ppd panel which is coming soon, and even a micro OLED panel. This can be swapped out completely from the headset, as you can see here. This is quite mind-blowing and definitely a first. And it really shows that Pimax are definitely thinking outside the box. And if this does work, it is absolutely amazing because you have two headsets in one, maybe even three if you've got the 57 ppd, 50 ppd, and of course the micro OLED. I've always said that micro OLED, it just gives you that wow factor when it comes to colors, deep blacks. If we can have both of those options in one headset, then this becomes insane value for money. I mean, I think it already is, to be honest, with this type of resolution. Obviously, the Crystal Light does not have that at all. And the OG Crystal, well, it does have interchangeable lenses, but I'm not sure what's going on with that, whether that's been completely scrapped or not. There is those wide field of view lenses, but I've got a review on the channel and I just don't like them at all. They're very warpy. Talking of warpy, that's another major difference. And sorry, I know this video is going around the houses, but I don't have a script. I never have a script. I just talk about these things as they come to my mind. Because I have so much experience using these headsets now, I can just basically just talk to the camera. If you do mind that, then sorry about that. Feel free to dislike the video. So yes, the warping profile, the aspheric lenses of the Crystal Light, there is definitely warping on those lenses. I'm not talking about the lenses that are defected, because we do have a quality control issue, we all know about that, but I'm talking about a normal aspheric lens that is fully working and has no fault. You can see warping along the edges of the display. Comparing that to the Super, well, it's absolutely mind-blowing. There's no other word I can really say. I will say on camera now that the Super has the best warping profile I've ever seen from aspheric lens headsets. Absolutely phenomenal job, and it really is very nice on the eyes. You can look down, up, left, right, whatever you want to do, and there's just no movement on the image. It's just really, really nice. They've done a great job, and in some ways that in itself is a great upgrade. It would be nice though if whatever they've learnt, whatever magic they put into the Super, they can translate that to the Crystal Light and OG Crystal with a firmware update. Now here's an interesting one about local dimming. At the time of this recording, because things can change of course, because Pimax do update their firmware and software very, very frequently, but local dimming on the Pimax Crystal Light and standard Crystal is more aggressive and looks darker than the Super. I'm not sure why that's the case, because the Super is supposed to have more dimming zones. It could be related to the panel itself, but I am more impressed with the local dimming on the Light and OG Crystal than the Super. But bear in mind that I am using very, very early software just before official, so that could and probably will change, and when it does, I'll leave a comment at the top of this video. Now, I'm sure I've missed loads of things out on this video, and please do let me know in the comments below if you've got any specific questions. But I'm getting fed up of talking now, so I'm going to leave this here because my face is starting to hurt. But in essence, obviously the Super, well, it's absolutely at the top of its game. It's an amazing headset. It is the best flight simulation headset out there, really. It's fully featured, apart from the mixed reality capabilities, but that's the same with both headsets. But in terms of the raw visual clarity, brightness, field of view, the whole shebang, it is incredible. And by the way, I haven't mentioned audio because they both have the same system. But the Crystal Light still has a major draw, because it is the cheapest high-end PC VR headset, fully featured, that you can get with inside-out tracking and controllers. And let's just quickly talk about the price to finish the video. The Crystal Lite, I believe, because obviously this changes quite a lot, is $887, something like that. Obviously that varies depending on the region. Whether the Crystal Super is $1,791. That's without any taxes and shipping costs and tariffs, which I know is a nightmare at the moment. That's just the sort of base price. So there is a big difference in the price, but there's also a massive difference in terms of the feature set and the clarity and everything I've just mentioned. And only you can decide which best fits your needs. I will say that the eye tracking is a godsend on the Super, and I think that's a great feature, but it's also available on the OG Crystal. But I still think for most people out there, the Crystal Lite is the one that makes the most sense for your hobby, especially if you're a bit tight on your budget. It is an amazing headset, and I'll still keep showing it on the channel because, in my opinion, it's the closest Reverb G2 replacement we've got. But if you can afford it, the Crystal Super is the absolute pinnacle of a flight simulation VR headset in 2025. If this video has been helpful to you and you want to support my channel, it's been a crazy time and I'm absolutely knackered, to tell you the truth. I do have an affiliate link for both the Crystal Lite and Crystal Super, and a very small discount too. But all that's left for me to say is thank you for watching, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye bye for now.